We'll start recording again. Okay, well, welcome. This is week 8. And at this point, we should be probably up to week 7 under the discussions. If not, you can just go back and get caught up on those. There's a couple of writing assignments, and there's one quiz earlier that would have to be completed. So we haven't had a chance to do that. This week's discussion was focused on the focus of your writing. That was the title of that discussion. And then that was based on content that you had in your reading. And the reading for this week was Chapter 3 of the Compositions Essentials Handbook, outlining and drafting an essay, and Chapter 14 of the Engaging Questions Handbook, editing fundamentals. This week's discussion, or week 9 discussion, coming up, is planning your thesis project. And then the reading for this coming week is in Chapters 15 of Engaging Questions and Chapter 7 of Composition Essentials. And there you're going to planning a research project and creating a research strategy. So really getting into the logistics of that research paper. Are there any questions on that?
No questions, Professor.
Okay, good. Very good. Okay. Okay, so outlining and drafting an essay. Let's start with that. So the first thing you want to do is want to consider your audience before you even start your outline or any draft or anything like that. The people who will read your writing or who will view or listen to your visual, audio, or multimedia composition. Then consider the level of language you should use to communicate most effectively with these readers. That is very, very important because if you're not addressing that need, then a lot of your content is going to just be a waste of your time because they're not going to connect with it. They'll be disengaged almost immediately from the content. Okay. So make your main point the focus of your writing. Okay, so a more focused version of your main idea communicates your viewpoint or argument on your subject and your purpose for writing about it. Present the main point to readers in your thesis statement. So this is important. You want to make sure that when you finally state that thesis statement, that it's clear what your argument is. You don't want them to have to guess, and it shouldn't be a mystery. Think of your writing as a photograph. Just as you focus your camera by aiming it at a fixed point, you can focus your writing by making every detail it contains relate directly to a thesis statement. Excuse me. So every piece of information you include in your essay should help prove, illustrate, or support your thesis. That is so important. That is the very foundation of very good writing, good thesis writing. Writers often present their thesis statements at the beginning of a piece of writing in an introductory paragraph. That's very traditional. I think that they even teach this in the lower grades, secondary school. The students are probably taught that's where their thesis statement should appear. I think it's to make it easier for the teacher to get right to it and make sure that they understand the concept of writing a thesis statement. However, your thesis statement can come anywhere you think is best. For example, if you need to give readers introductory details that will make your main point or argument easier to understand, you can place a thesis in the middle or even at the end of an essay. Doing so can also help build suspense. So those are good techniques to explore and to experiment with in your drafts to see where that might work best. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, yeah, okay. All right, so write a working thesis statement. Okay, so a working thesis statement is your first attempt to express your main point or argument formally. All right, so you will probably revise it many times as you draft and discover exactly what you want to say about your subject. You will learn how to draft an essay later in this chapter. For now, remember that writing a working thesis involves two steps: choosing a subject to write about and deciding what point or argument to make about the subject. Okay, so this is just your working thesis. And the reason that it's a working thesis is because you're trying to see how well you can support that argument. You may need to tweak your thesis statement before you get to your final draft of your paper. So just keep that in mind. You're not necessarily held to that thesis statement. They can change and evolve as you do your research. All right. Is that clear?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, very good. All right. Subjects such as those you read about in chapter 2, you read about in chapter 2, is abstract, general, and incomplete. So that's a subject. A thesis, on the other hand, is concrete and specific. It has certainty and completeness. You'll notice that with a lot of dissertations, the titles are huge, and the titles are basically the thesis statement of the paper. So yes, that's just something that they do in doctoral dissertations. Essays, not essays, but thesis, master's thesis, not quite as much, but sometimes you'll see a similar thing with that as well. With a lot of institutions for doctoral dissertations, it is a requirement to have that statement. Your title is really a statement about your research. So then they give some examples here. Compare a vague subject such as cigarette smoking with a thesis such as cigarette smoking is expensive, harmful, and offensive. Or consider how much more meaningful poverty becomes when you write, signs of poverty are on the rise in rural America. In general, in the essays you write in college, you will make a point or argue a position. So to turn a subject into a thesis, you must decide why your subject is important and interesting and what you want to tell your readers about it. The more excited you are about your topic, the easier it is to be, easier it will be to interest your readers. So that's very true. If you're not really committed to the topic, or it's just something that you just kind of pull out there to fulfill the assignment, it'll show in your writing because it won't have the passion in there. You can tell that the intensity won't be there, the commitment to that argument. It'll be weak. Yeah, the argument will be weak. It just won't be as powerful. The tone will reflect your commitment to that particular topic and how emotionally you're engaged with that topic. So that's something to think about. Okay, all right. Deciding on a thesis statement requires focusing. All right. Very good. So let's think about this. So begin focusing by reviewing the notes you made about your subject through listening, focus-free writing, brainstorming, clustering, or drawing a subject tree. Okay, so then with that information fresh in your mind, ask yourself these 3 questions. What main point or argument do I want to make about the topic? What details should I include to develop or support that main point or argument? And how do I make sure my thesis is specific and concise? So these are the three things you want to focus on. This is going to help you in the writing process. And back here, we had some, concepts such as, listing, focus, free writing, brainstorming, clustering, or drawing a subject tree. These are things that are covered in the chapter. So you can go back and review that if you're not sure what that is. Okay, we don't cover that in this lecture, but those are techniques that you use for writing your drafts or drafting your thesis. Okay. All right, so you want to write a rough draft. One way to complete a rough draft is to write as much information you can about each section of your outline. Sometimes it helps to put the information for each section in its own paragraph. Okay, so that's very helpful because it keeps it organized. It also makes it easier for you to spot that particular topic, that specific information. If you put it in different paragraphs, it's just easier to keep track of, and you can move it around. And a lot of times people don't understand that writing is really the mechanics of writing is really, you're developing, you're constructing something. Is art. You're moving pieces around so that it has a more powerful impact. It's more relevant to certain parts of the thesis. So yeah, so you move pieces around just because it may have been in one section of the paper in the first draft. Doesn't mean it needs to stay there. You might realize, this needs to come before, needs to come earlier in this thesis paper, or this needs to come later. So you can move things around. You become an architect in writing. So writing that's the creative part of writing a thesis. Some people write the introduction first. Others start with the body paragraphs. The choice is yours. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. One, stick to your outline and any internal readings you've sketched out, but don't be afraid to add ideas as they pop into your mind. So, that's all part of the development process. As you're writing and as you're looking at these concepts and the evidence that you've gathered, you'll realize, okay, this is causing me to think this, and so you might bring in some more citations, or you might bring in some more literature to support that argument. It's a living document. Your thesis is a living document until you submit it and defend it. It's not something that has to be stagnant. It's going to grow and evolve as you go. Don't worry about paragraph structure and development. So this is where a lot of writers get hung up, and it'll cause writer's block very quickly. It's that you're going to be worried about all the mechanics of it. Don't worry about that. And here it says don't be overly concerned about errors in spelling, grammar, or sentence structure either. Just go for it. Just don't let those things impede your progress. Just continue writing and until you get those ideas out. This goes back to free writing in the previous slide. That's what a lot of free writing is. It's just letting those ideas just come out. Don't want to kind of impede your creativity. So here we go. Okay, let's take a look at this essay. I'm just creating an essay video. I thought this might be helpful to just kind of give you some ideas, and there might be some concepts here that are a little different from what we're studying today, but I think it's kind of helpful just to kind of get you thinking about the process of creating an essay outline. So here we go.
Before diving headfirst into writing, with the material you gathered while researching the topic, you can map out the rough structure of your essay in an outline. This will make it easier to get started and keep you on track. Creating an outline involves writing quick summary sentences or phrases for every point you will cover in each paragraph, giving you a picture of how your argument will unfold. So my topic is about the development of Braille, which is the raised dot reading and writing system used by visually impaired people. Want to learn how to create an outline for your essay? Then stay tuned. Hi, I'm Jessica from Scribber, here to help you achieve your academic goals. At the stage where you're writing an essay outline, you should already have an initial thesis or argument. In our case, that is, the invention of Braille helped transform blind people's social status in the 19th century. Once you have an idea of your overall argument, you can begin to organize your material in a way that serves the argument. At this stage, you probably have a lot of different ideas and potential sources. Start by trying to group your ideas together and identify a few broad themes. So this essay, our ideas can be roughly divided into 3 main themes: the situation of blind people before Braille's invention, the invention and spread of the Braille system, the consequences of Braille's invention. They all support and build up to an overall argument. Under each theme, plan out exactly what points you want to make. Each point should be clearly related to your thesis. Remember, an essay doesn't just list everything you know about a topic. It's about building a coherent argument. To get there, you should clearly say what you want to say in each part. So for example, when we discuss the invention and spread of Braille, we want to make 2 key points to advance our argument. 1, that existing tactile reading system at the time were not effective enough. And 2, that Braille was more successful because it was designed specifically for blind people's needs. When you have your material and arguments organized into themes, consider what order they should appear in. Is there an obvious starting point for your argument? Or do some points need to be set up by discussing other points first? Is there one subject that provides an easy transition into another? Since this essay is about a series of events, we're taking a chronological approach, which means discussing events in the order in which they occurred and explaining how they are related as you go. To show why Braille was so important, we need to set up our argument by first describing the situation for blind people before Braille's invention. This provides a logical transition to the invention itself and how it spread. Finally, we make our argument about the consequences for blind people's status. This is just one of the many ways to structure an essay. Check out this article to see examples for other structures. After planning out the ideas for each paragraph and putting them into a logical order, it's time to think about the analysis and evidence you'll use to support your points. Take a look at part 2. How did the invention of Braille start? Existing tactile reading systems were not suitable for everyday use. To support this claim, we'll discuss the 2 systems that came before Braille and why they were not good enough. When you're done outlining your essay, we're moving on to the writing part. Woohoo! Watch this video next to learn how to write an introduction. I'll see you there.
Okay, so I thought that was pretty good. You have any questions on that one? Otis?
No questions, actually, Professor. It was insightful.
Okay.
So I always struggled where to start with writing anything, doing any assignments. So it's a good starting point that she mentioned. So structuring it and having that outline first applies for all. So yeah.
Oh, very good. Very good. Glad you found that helpful. Yeah, when I was teaching, well, actually not teaching, but I can remember in the lower grades, what they used to call just an outline would really looks like a table of contents. It really didn't have a whole lot of information in it. and what she presented there in that video, they would refer to as a sentence outline. But in academia, when you say outline, that's pretty much what they mean. They mean, an actual sentence outline with, some detail to it. So good. I think that was very helpful. I'm glad you found that helpful as well. So good. Very good. We would have gone on to a break, but since this, I think that we'll just continue to move on and just complete the lecture, unless you want to break now. What are your thoughts, Lotus?
Let's go ahead, Professor.
Continue?
It's only been 30 minutes, yes.
Okay, very good. So we'll just go ahead. We'll continue, and the lecture will probably end earlier than it should, but we'll get through the content. Is that okay? Okay, very good. All right, so here we're going to get into some editing fundamentals, and then we're into the other textbook here as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video. I think this is a little longer video, but it really has some very helpful information in here.
I don't know if there is anything as dull and tedious as editing an academic manuscript, especially if it's your own. When editing our own work, the brain tends to anticipate what the eye will see. So the eye doesn't see what's on the page. The eye sees what the brain tells it will see. The point of all this is, rather than doing a good solid scrub of the document, the eye is just sort of scanning it. As a result, we think we've got a pretty good document, when in fact, it's garbage. I'm Dr. Lon Schiffbauer, and this is how to edit an academic manuscript. Editing and proofing an academic manuscript means looking for more than just spelling and grammar and format. A good, solid editorial process should consider these 7 elements. Structure and format. The paper includes all the required sections and is formatted correctly. Narrative flow. The content should follow a clear, logical narrative flow throughout the manuscript, including smooth transitions from one topic to another. Topic discipline. The content should always adhere to your stated research problem, never straying off topic. Coherence. The content clearly conveys your line of reasoning. Academic rigor. The content properly cites research and substantiates your claims and interpretations. Grammar and spelling. The content maintains correct use of active versus passive voice, past, present, and future tense, verb agreement, third person, and spelling. Writing style. The content employs appropriate sentence length, economy of language, using one word when one will do, and not 3, and academic tone, also known as scholarly voice. Now, these are the 7 elements you should consider when performing an edit. But how exactly do we then edit the manuscript? Well, here are 10 things you can do to really make sure that your proofreading is top-notch. Number 1, carve out short periods of time in which you can edit your manuscript. The brain can maintain focus for only so long before it starts to get sloppy and miss things. Keep your mental focus sharp by editing in 1-hour blocks throughout the day. Number 2, work from a printout, not a computer screen. The physical nature of paper makes it easier for the brain to engage with and form a mental map of the content. Another advantage of a physical printout is you can take it anywhere. So whether you're waiting in line, doctor's office, who knows what, you can always pull it out and maybe get in good 10 minutes of editing. Number 3, and this is my favorite, read your manuscript aloud. When you read your own content, the eye tends to see what it expects to see, what we intended to write, not what is actually on the page. When we read the material out loud, it forces us to slow down and really make sure we're catching each and every single word. Furthermore, the ear can hear poor grammar better than the eye can see it. When you say it out loud and it sounds funky, that's because it's funky. Number 4, use a blank sheet of paper to cover the lines below the one you're reading. This keeps your eye from slipping into scan mode and forces you to slow down and focus on the content. It also helps you read each sentence individually and assess it as a standalone thought. Now, if you're breaking rule number 2 and actually editing on a computer screen, go ahead and highlight each sentence individually. That way you can focus on the sentence that you have highlighted before you. Number 5, highlight, circle, or otherwise check off every punctuation mark. This forces you to pay close attention to each mark and challenge its use. This is especially helpful when proofreading your references. Number 6, in addition to reading your manuscript from beginning to end, edit it from end to beginning. Now, here's the idea. When you first sit down to start editing your manuscript, you're fresh, you're laser focused, you're all there. But as you go through, your attention starts to wane. This means that in the case of editing a paper, the beginning of the paper is fantastic, the middle is and the last part of the paper, it's garbage. So we want to make sure that we are applying the same amount of mental faculties to the end as we are the beginning. Now, another thing this does is it helps to break up the narrative flow. Now, yes, we want to make sure the narrative flow is good, but we can get caught up in the story, if you will, and we start to read our paper as a paper rather than looking at sentence structure, grammar, spelling, things like that. By reading from the end and going to the beginning, that narrative flow is broken. And so it forces us to pay attention to those small little persnickety things. Number 7, use your computer's search function to find common mistakes that keep cropping up. This is a great way to quickly find and fix instances of that, who, effect, it's, and other common grammatical errors that may vex you. Number 8, compartmentalize your edits to really focus on those 7 elements that we talked about earlier. So for example, one edit is just about spelling and grammar, nothing else. The next edit, just about narrative flow and coherence. You really want to make sure that you're focusing on one thing so that you can apply all your mental faculties to it. Number 9, read the paper as a reader, not as a writer. Now, I know that's not easy. In fact, it's probably impossible, but bear with me. As the writer, you are already invested in the outcome. You already think the flow is fine because, after all, you wrote it. You already believe that you have answered all the questions that you raised at the beginning because otherwise you wouldn't have submitted it. But a reader doesn't know any of that. A reader doesn't know what you're writing about unless you tell them what you're writing about. The reader doesn't know what arguments you're going to make unless you tell them what arguments you're going to make. The reader does not buy into your results unless you've really substantiated those results. And the reader does not really follow your narrative unless you have a good, clean, cohesive narrative. So by recalibrating our brains and looking at this paper as though we had never seen it before, we're really challenging ourselves to do it right. Number 10, and it's appropriate that it's number 10, because number 10, you want to edit your manuscript 10 times. Now, I know this sounds excessive, but trust me, it's not. A good solid manuscript goes through multiple iterations: outline, rough draft, first draft, second draft, final. And remember, you're going to compartmentalize your edits to look for specific elements. And so this is going to take multiple edits. And here's the thing, even after 10 edits, your manuscript still won't be perfect. I edited the crap out of my PhD dissertation, and I have since still found several errors. I'm not going to show you where they are, but trust me, they're there. So while your manuscript won't be perfect, you'll know it's as good as it can be before that law of depreciating return starts to kick in. So there you go. Follow those 10 steps to account for those 7 elements, and you're going to have a solid manuscript. All right? I hope this was helpful. We'll talk to you again soon. Until then, have a fantastic day.
Okay, so that was very good. I just realized I had the wrong title here, so I'm going to fix that real quick here. But as I'm fixing that in the actual slide presentation, what did you think about that video? One of the things that I can definitely support is one. Sometimes it's better to just print out pages of your thesis and work on editing there. So I had to do this when I was working on my dissertation because I had a 3-hour commute to work and a 3.5-hour commute home, and that involved catching multiple buses, a train ride, and then more buses, and then a car ride home. So during the train ride and even on some stages of the bus, I was able to do some editing, but I didn't have a good Wi-Fi connection. So I would print out portions of the dissertation and work on those edits and revisions there on paper. But of course, sometimes that's not possible either. Either we don't have access to a printer, or just it's expensive to print that much paper out. You use a lot of ink, and ink isn't cheap. So that's for sure. The other thing that I wanted to kind of support that it was brought up in that video was the fact that you will find that your brain thinks that something is happening when in fact it isn't really happening or going on with that paper. Your mind fills in things that you want to say, but you didn't really write it on the page. And so that tip to read aloud is a very, very good tip. We use that a lot in writing. I do a lot of writing, all types of writing, and so I have to use that a lot. And also, finally, the point about your manuscript will go through lots of different edits and revisions is absolutely true. When I was writing my first book that was published, I was co-authoring with another educator, and we went through so many drafts of that book, and then finally we submitted it to the publishers, and then the publishers had their editing team work on it, and that book went through 7 additional edits after we had edited and submitted what we thought was a good draft. The publishers editing team had us do 7 additional edits of that manuscript. And then again, as you mentioned, even after the editing team with their expertise, and after we had gone through and we published it, I can go through that book and I can tell you that I was able to find errors in that book. So that's just something to think about. It just really helps to just kind of edit, revise, revise as much as possible before you submit that final draft. I also like that the video talked about organizing your time so that you're realistic. You don't want to spend hours at a time working on editing and revising your manuscript. You just don't want to do that. It'll be exhausting. Your mind will become disengaged. It'll be cognitive load. It isn't a good idea to do that. And also, I like the idea, and this is something that I haven't tried yet, and that is editing in reverse. I thought that he supported that, the reason for that, I thought quite well, was that once you're going through and you're reading through, that you're going to get a little tired. So that beginning, that introduction looks fantastic. And then as you go through the paper, the quality of the content really starts to become diminished until you get to the conclusion, and it's really not as good as we would want it to be, or we could make it. So those are, I thought those were some really good tips on that. Is there anything else that has stood out to you in that video that might be helpful to you?
So my thoughts are, Professor. Well, at first I thought there are AIs that can do editing. I mean, even if it's on a small scale, you can do the editing and spell check, grammar online.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So maybe this video was done before AI was publicly announced, but I feel like grammar and spell checking can be done using AI.
Yes.
That's my thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
But overall, of course, we have the AI on our side, but the tips he gave were very interesting. I also believe printing it is very good, because our eyes get tired when we're staring at a screen for long hours, let alone for an hour, for some time. So I agree with that. Even the structures, the 7 things he mentioned, are very core things, starting with structuring your content and the flow it has, because that creates a sense of organized, and sense of that you did well on the writing that you have to your audience. So yeah, these are my thoughts. And also one interesting thing was that reading backwards, that was a new thing for me too, and very interesting. Yeah, that's it, Professor.
Okay. Well,
these are my thoughts.
Oh, good. Those are excellent thoughts. Thank you for sharing, Lotus. Yes, you're absolutely right about AI. We've been using AI for grammar for a long time. Grammarly and other AI tools have been around for quite a while to go through papers and documents, and we use them, and we recommend that our students use them in academia. So yes, so that's true. I'm not sure if he was assuming that we wouldn't use that, just that you want to make sure that you are using that. And here's something that examples that he gave were like word choice. Like, for instance, Grammarly will catch a word that's out of context, but some AIs that they use don't catch those words. They look fine, they're good, but really they are not as cohesive as you would want them to be. So you have to be careful. AI also has to be edited and revised. So that's why a lot of writers only use it for outlining, because if you use it to actually write a book, you'll find that AI makes quite a few errors they're not the typical grammatical errors, but there's errors in structure and mechanics that the AI just doesn't understand.
Of course, Professor. So I do believe that needs training. It's only starting. So I'm not saying you have to write all the content using AI, but at least it can check spelling errors, and it can check commas and punctuation. So that I think these things are more hectic, and they need focus to track them down. But it's easier to use AI.
Absolutely. I agree. Yes. So yeah. Yep. That's a good way to use AI. So very good. I use AI to outline courses that I'm creating and books that I'm writing and articles. So that AI is very helpful. It saves me hours of time, if not days, to get that content down and just follow those outlines and then expand from there. So very good. That's good. Good. That's excellent. Excellent feedback. Anything else on that video?
You've said it. You've said most of it, Professor. But it was very helpful and interesting.
Okay. Okay.
Especially the 7 things and the 10 steps that he mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like if I did my paper, if I did any writing that I have, clean it while I was writing it, then I felt like it was better to do it that way. But now it's better to write everything, to have your ideas, and then you can edit and see what's wrong with it.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Yep. Okay, good. Good. All right. Let's go to, okay, good. Okay, have you ever gotten a paperback covered with correction marks, for example, with comments in the margins like, what does this mean? Or don't follow you here, and marked with a grade lower than you anticipated? Then you know what happens when you do not edit well. So, I mean, as we've all had the experience. So instead of responding to what you have said, your structure is responding to problems with how you have said it. So that's, I know I've been there more than once, and with papers all the way from my associate's degree through my doctoral degree. Is, you know, sometimes it just, you know.
Yes. Same here, Professor.
Okay, good. Okay, so what is editing? Editing is an intense effort to find and solve whatever problems remain in a piece of writing after revision. It amounts to paying attention to small details you may have missed earlier in the process. Editing includes checking for flow and focus within individual paragraphs, checking for flow and focus from one paragraph to the next, rewording awkward, wordy, or unclear sentences, correcting errors of grammar, spelling, and punctuation, attending to formalities such as parenthetical notation and works cited pages. Okay, so is that clear? Do you have any comments or questions about this?
No comments, Professor.
Okay. Your feedback has been very, very good today. Thank you, Rhodas. Very helpful. Why edit? You're welcome. So why edit? Good question, right? Perhaps you feel that editing should not matter very much, and you know, for most people in academia, students in faculty, they might think, well, that's silly. No one would ever think that. I've actually had students who would ask me, you know, why does it matter? It's creative. They've made their point. Why do you need to do that? So it says, after all, it is content that counts. Saying something worth reading is the whole point of writing. However, content cannot be separated from the way it is expressed. Have you ever been irritated or distracted because background noise or a bad connection interfered with a cell phone conversation? A poorly edited paper is like a bad connection. It irritates and distracts readers. Okay, so more seriously, if your sentences do not say what you mean, if readers struggle to understand your sentences, if your paragraphs wander, your thoughts and your message get lost. Okay, so edit then to communicate better with your readers. That's the whole point of editing. Edit also because the impression other people have of you matters here, you know. So this, you know, to a lesser degree, but in academia, of course, it matters, right? So you'll be defending your dissertation, your thesis rather, before a board of faculty and administrators for Windsor University, and so that impression, you want to make a good impression on them. So an unedited or poorly edited paper says that the writer lacks either the skill or the discipline to attend to details. Judgments like incompetent or careless or even illiterate are common. Such judgments may seem unfair, but the consequences are real. Poor grades, lukewarm recommendations, being stuck in lower level jobs. It's just reality. It's just it's a harsh reality, but it is reality. So we want to keep those things in mind. But the main point is really that to communicate better with your readers is why we edit, because as it says, your thoughts and your message will get lost because they're so focused on the distractions of the poorly written content that they really can't get past that, and so they lose the whole point that you're trying to make in your thesis. Any comments or questions about that?
No, Professor.
Okay, very good. All right. Okay, so best practices. Where does editing belong in the composing process? Focus on editing only when you have a draft you consider final, the best you can do. Why? First, editing requires undivided attention. Some writers edit as they compose, even while writing first drafts. We do not recommend it. So this is what the authors of the text are saying. Editing as you write slows down composing and takes attention away from where it ought to be, on saying what you have to say. In subsequent drafts, you can attend to revision, which deals with large-scale changes in changes in a draft to achieve your purpose or meet the requirements in an assignment. Develop your points more accurately, adequately, connect with your readers more consistently, improve your organization, and so on. Revise first, then edit. Okay? The second, editing too soon is not efficient. If you edit a sentence or a paragraph in the first draft and then delete it during revision, you've wasted your time. Still worse, you might resist throwing out a sentence you have edited so carefully when it should be cut. Okay, because now you have some an investment in that particular portion of the paper. Editing too soon can actually get in the way of something more important, revising and rewriting to solve major problems. So, and then finally, compulsive editing can easily lead to writer's paralysis, being so critical of everything you write that you can hardly write at all. And this is very, very true. Happens to all writers. When you are composing, let go, let thoughts and words flow, save editing for later. I've got myself caught up into this writing a novel. I've been working on a trilogy, a novel, a fantasy trilogy for 15 years. And it's because I go back and I'll learn something new about writing, the mechanics of writing and some new techniques, and then I'll go back and I'll try to revise that manuscript, and it's just and then I won't go back to that manuscript for months, if not even a year. I won't touch it. So that's something to just keep in mind. It is hard to resist because you just want to sit there. Oh, I need to correct that, but just let it go. Just wait for a better time to get to that point for the editing. Okay. So that was a lot. You have any questions on that?
No questions, Professor. As I've mentioned before, from the video I learned was the part where you said some writers edits as they compose, which is a bad thing. So yeah, that's what I learned.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Very good. Mhm. Okay. So if you're working on paragraphs, take it one paragraph at a time. Okay. A good method for slowing down and listening to listening is to read your draft out loud or aloud, as they said in the video. And then it's like I said in the video, your ear will catch things that your eye might miss. Mark everything that bothers you. So I think that's interesting too. If it bothers you, then it's going to bother your reader too. So just make note of that, highlight it, or however you need to make references of that. Then you can address that later on. It's short to slow down. So. The most important thing to remember when editing your work is to slow down. Linger over paragraphs and words and rework everything that bothers you. Okay? All right. And then what matters most in editing? 3 key points. Okay, so editing is not just cleaning up. Cleaning up is proofreading, and that is important, but it's only the last step in editing. The purpose of editing is to detect and eliminate everything that gets in the way of communicating with your reader. Okay, again, they're repeating that because it's important. Editing requires time and concentration. It is not reading over your final draft. It is working through your final draft methodically, and for focusing on paragraph sentences and paragraphs, and then on sentences, and finally on errors. So there's, you're gonna just kind of methodically go through this, this process. It's just, it's tedious, but it is worth it. Keep an editing checklist. Okay. Study the marks and the comments on every graded paper. So, and this is just something that you'll get to do in your one-on-one when we're reviewing some of your content that you want to bring content. And we're not going to go through the entire thesis during those sessions, but bring something that might be bothering you. Oh, I'm stuck here, and then Dr. Awaad will be able to help you get through some of those sticking points. And then, or if you're uploading something that you want us to review, we will have a chance to review your final draft, and the review board will also review that. I have a template that I use for a journal that I do some peer review of research papers that are submitted to the journal. I took that and I revised it and so that it is tailored to what we need here for this particular course. And the review board will be using that to rank and to critique your final draft. So you'll have a chance to look at those marks and some of the things that they're saying before you do your defense. Okay, so
so you'll be sharing that template that you shared with us as well?
Correct. You will have that template as well. Yep. We're finalizing template. Yes. So we're finalizing that template this week. Okay. So good question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay. And then that is it for our lecture today. Again, I'll just go ahead and first, are there any questions? Any other questions that you might have for me today?
No questions, Professor, but I wanted to ask the timeline for the thesis, because we're only left with a month and some time.
Yeah. Yes.
But we're maybe, Professor, we can have this conversation. Has the recording stopped or?
No, it's still going. You want me to pause the recording?
Yes, yes,
I can do
yes.
that.
That would be, yeah, okay.
Okay.